Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. I hope you've had a chance to have a look at our pod out there. We wanted to bring driverless to you, and you know, it's not moving at the moment, but I think just having something there is quite useful, so I encourage you to go out there after the event. I'm really pleased, you know, to address the audience here on this, because being an engineer and talking to engineers, talking to regulators, the one thing that I think maybe it's different to what David's perspective is that we really have to put the consumer and the community first, understand what they want and, you know, what they want to get out of this. And I suppose even with our initiative, we started a lot with technology and data, and you'll see the journey we've been through, but essentially we've refocused that and going back and asking them early what they want to see, and I think that might be a good way to inform, you know, how we develop our cities. So who are we? The Australian Driverless Vehicle Initiative is not a government organisation, it's not a research organisation, it's not an industry organisation, but it is a coalition of all three of those. We have 86 partners currently and growing. I think when we were here last year, we were around about 25, so we've grown quite significantly. And this is our partner slide. So you can see the range of organisations. Oops, I'll go back. The range of organisations that are involved, the ecosystem. It's not just about transport, it's about a whole range of different elements. We've got local governments, state governments, we've got insurers, taxi industry, which you'd be surprised, you know, the taxi industry with the impacts and this sort of technology on them, international collaboration. So it is a very growing partnership. But also it's a very competitive space. So South Australia and South Australian government, the reason why we're based here is because South Australian government were the first to really embark on this journey and to understand the benefits it's going to bring to society and to the South Australian community. But, you know, since last year in July when we launched, you can see there's significant activity all around Australia. It is a very competitive space. It's very competitive to attract industry, to be seen to showcasing technology with the changing demographics, employment, and there's some huge economic benefits to be derived. So, you know, South Australia is, you know, at the forefront, but it's got a lot of competitors in this space. The demonstration that you might have been aware of in November last year on the Southern Expressway was the first of its type, and first one, we haven't had one since, in South Australia or Australia. We've had some deployment in Singapore, so we can't say the Southern Hemisphere anymore, but definitely it was a leading thing for the region, and some other things that are happening. So this is the RSE IntelliBus, which is a bigger version of that, a different model. That shuttle was launched in August, and it runs, if you go to South Perth, you can get a ride, book a ride on it. So currently people are going to be able to take rides and understand what the technology is doing. One of the things that may or might not interest you is heavy vehicles and how heavy vehicles move around, and earlier this month we announced a partnership with an international technology company, but also with some other partners as well. And this is about getting heavy vehicles to move more safely along our long haul routes. So what does it mean for the cities? So this is some work that was done. It's a bit of a messy slide, but it's really about looking at the data, what does it mean, and what is going to be the first things that we should look at if we want to start getting some real step changes. And the car sharing economy, shared taxis is one of the big areas that we can get some significant benefits. We're probably at this stage here with the high-end vehicles, the Volvos, the Mercedes, those sort of vehicles that you're seeing advertised and promoted, but really they're going to have a very marginal effect on, you know, the volume of traffic. Some effects on crashes as well, a reduction on crashes having that higher technology, but it's really about, you know, do we want to get to that end state, and how do we get there, and how do we focus on that? And so that shared economy, shared taxis is sort of the big game changer if you're looking at what we should be doing and focusing on next. So the other part of this presentation is to tell you that this technology is here and now. It's not all pie in the sky. The vehicle outside is going to be deployed in the UK, in Milton Keynes. There's going to be 40 of those running around. It's about horses for courses, and I think in South Australia and Adelaide in particular, we really need to understand what is it that we want to do and then focus and target that directly rather than having a scattergun approach. The whole, connected parking, I think parking is one of the big game changers. If we can convert car parks to something better, if we can get rid of on-street car parking but give consumers and people an alternative to having to not be able to park and walk too far, that's the real thing I think that's going to transform our city. And electric vehicles. This is about, when we talk about driverless vehicles, we talk about sustainability and making sure that we just don't build cars that are less sustainable than what we are now. And I think we have to start really getting engaged in this electric vehicle, this EV network, and what that really means, and make some step changes towards accelerating that uptake in South Australia. So where's the business case? Why do it? ADVI does position papers. We use our expertise, those 86 logos up there. We use them to really build the understanding in Australia, but also internationally. And we've done an economic model, and $95 billion per annum of economic value is there to be unlocked. And 80 billion of that comes from the road safety and the congestion savings in lives, in injuries. So that's a significant impact, and that's a significant benefit that we're foregoing by not accelerating the introduction of the technology. The creation of 16,000 new jobs, that's direct and indirect. We know that the manufacturing industry is going to lose 40,000 workers. If we don't work quickly, they're going to go into other, that sort of expertise is going to move, it's going to go into other areas, or we're hearing that some of the GM jobs, they're moving their smart people to Detroit. They're taking them out of the country, taking that expertise out of the country. We really need to stop that and give them something to focus on. And obviously we need to promote the fact that Australia, South Australia, has got this high-tech expertise here already, and it's a leapfrog into the broader region. So we've got these significant design capabilities. So now's a really great time. So again, this is where I'm saying, we started off with the technology, we wanted to promote the technology and its capability, but we didn't ask the people what they thought. Last month, we released our first public opinion survey. So this is the first survey in Australia that's been undertaken to actually ask the population what they actually think about the technology. Do they agree? So, for the scientists in the room, for the data analysts, it was a scientific, robust survey underpinned by ethics approval from universities and a representative sample of the Australian population. So the questions that we asked is, how do you feel about the vehicle contributing to your driving or taking over the driving? How comfortable would you be with driverless public transport, remembering the shared taxis and driverless taxis? And also, what are you willing to pay? So these were some of the questions. It was a very long survey, so these are just a sample, and I'll go through some of those others. But the willingness to pay was interesting. Obviously, people don't want to pay any more than they have to, but they said, they'd be willing to pay something around $8,500 to $9,000 for these additional capabilities. How comfortable people with public transport? I think driverless public transport is, I think the jury's out, essentially. It's when you think about the results, as we say, about how likely are people to use this, how's their understanding of driverless vehicles, less than 10% of the Australian population are actually in vehicles that have got high-end technology currently. So we've got an audience of responding to this survey. They're not really familiar with where the current technology is at, much less this driverless technology. But as you can see, the driving tasks and things that they want these vehicles to take away from them are probably a good indicator of where we should start focusing. Now, not just about getting people a ride when they're intoxicated, but most important, we've found 73%, the social consciousness of the fact that people with a disability or people with an impairment, or as people age and lose some of their capabilities to drive, that's where we think is a real target. So, targeting aged and the disability sector with some solutions that is going to solve those problems. I think society is really attuned to the benefits in that regard. Obviously, the other one is about, when would you likely, what are the functions you want to give up? And it's no surprise, people don't want to drive in congested traffic. They want to give that away. If they do monotonous driving, they want to give that away. So that's something probably we could have predicted, and I think reinforces the fact of having some of that technology and upgrading infrastructure to allow that sort of thing. What are the things that most concern people? So that's a very interesting one, because cyber security and all those sort of things are high on the discussions. What we're seeing is they want to understand what's their risk and the liability, and that's something that with a number of insurers and legal people on our partnership we can solve that. But also, you know, one of the key things is they're not really ready to put their children into a driverless vehicle. So I'm interested to hear from Tom how many, you know, people put their children into Ubers, you know, if that's, you know, so we've still got some work to do there. But a lot of the resistance isn't something that we're not aware of. But I suppose the one thing I wanted to leave you with is it's really about communication, how we communicate to the population. And, you know, words like living laboratories is great for, you know, researchers, but who wants to live in a laboratory? If I wanted to live in a city, I'd want to live in somewhere that looked, you know, like a lifestyle precinct, somewhere that's going to be innovative. Those words, we need to get the communication right about how we sell living in this sort of a society to people. And I think living in a laboratory is probably missing the mark. So that's me, and thanks very much.